I was just really kind of defeated, and I believed that my life was just about getting drugs and alcohol and surviving, essentially. As long as I had drugs and alcohol, I wasn't too concerned with having a place to live.
For a lot of years, I thought they were just a waste. Once you're into that, it's over with. Why don't we just, you incarcerate them, and that's not doing any good because they get out and then do the same thing.
My name is Matt Budner. I'm 33 years old. I work at Hoag Hospital as a surgical tech. Beacon House is awesome. When I used and drank for the first time when I was 14. And then from the age of 14 through high school, it was really rapid. I began using at school, drinking at school. My grades went from great to mediocre to not eligible for sports to not graduating on time. And the people around me were changing. I was moving away from the good kids and kind of felt like I fit in with the other people that use drugs and alcohol. And I joined the Navy, which was my attempt. Well, my mother's told me to join the Navy. And that was my plan, to stop drinking, to join the Navy, which is funny. After joining the service, I felt like I had purpose again, and I was really driven and motivated to be like Johnny on the spot sailor guy. And that was quickly overshadowed with my addiction and my drinking. And about a year into my enlistment, after completing most of my training, I picked up right where I left off. Drinking on the job, drinking after the job. I was using drugs in the service, and this behavior continued for almost my entire enlistment, which was about 9 years. I met a girl, fell in love, and obviously that relationship failed. I deployed to Iraq twice. I was using so much in Iraq that I actually had a seizure, and I got medevaced back to the States and came back here, addicted to drugs and alcohol with an 8-day-old son, and no solution except to continue to drink and use more. My family was tolerant of me and helped me as much as they could, but really didn't believe anything I said, and rightfully so. The only thing I could do to kind of get by was pick up and use and drink again, and that lasted another couple years until I got found out by my commanding officers, and they gave me a second chance and a third chance and sent me to rehab, and finally I was discharged from the Navy, where I entered my 5th treatment center. And within 30 days of completing that program, I was homeless for the first time in my life, and strung out, homeless downtown San Diego with no answers. And at that time of my life, I really just wanted to die. And my turning point in that was I called my mom, Collect. She agreed to pick me up, and she took me to the VA in Long Beach, and they said, you're either going to the Beacon House or you're going to a shelter. And I was scared of being homeless anymore, and they took me to the Beacon House, and I was introduced to a sustainable solution that works.
My name is John Bettis, and I live in San Pedro. I don't really have an official capacity with Beacon House, but I have stepped up and volunteered some time to help them out with some construction issues. I was hearing that they were living out of totes. Basically, your Rubbermaid tote was their, every piece of belonging that they had was included in this tote. And I didn't think that was acceptable, so I stopped by the pit one day and I talked to, I believe it was Lynn, and I asked if it would be okay if I build, 3 or 4 dressers and donate them to the guys. And he says, that would be wonderful. Let me check with the board. And 2 days later, the executive director called me and said, that's a wonderful thing, but is it possible to do 24? Well, I'm working out of my house, so, I don't know, but I'm up for the challenge. So, let's try it. That's when I talked about getting some guys involved to help out. So I asked if they could send guys up to assist on the weekends, which they gladly did. So every weekend for several months, I had 2 guys coming up to my house, and we were all working together, and they were learning a little bit about how to work with wood. They had a little bit of pride because they knew that one of these dressers was going to be for them. The dressers stay with the house, but they get to use them while they're there. But I always had lunch with the guys. So we'd shut everything down, and that's when I got to talk to the guys individually and learn about their lives one-on-one. Over the next few months, we ended up doing, I believe it was 45 of them, and then they received some more funds from a donation or however they came up with the funds for it, and they put it in order for another 25, so we finished those off and delivered to the guys. With residents between 100 and 110, I've done 65, so there's still a need for 45 or 50. So at some point I expect my phone to ring and ask me for more.
My first impression of the house was it was crazy. I just saw a bunch of smiling people who said they were alcoholics, and I didn't know what was going on. It's a bit whelming. Just the amount of love that I was shown when I got there. At the time, I was really taken aback because I had never experienced genuine people sincerely trying to help me. I'm sure if you would have asked me that day how I really felt, I would have said this place sucks. But it was so different and foreign to me. It was overwhelming. It's something, it's really hard to put into words. We did lots of yard crews. We did lots of events that supported the community. Myself and some other guys at the house got to help serve the community at the bistros on the last Friday of each month. I got to help behind the scenes stuff with our fundraising dinner. I got to help with the Christmas tree lot. We learned how to make wreaths, and I got to do panels at the VA, talk to other vets, and hopefully give them hope that there is a way to recover. We got to speak on other AA panels. There's just, the Beacon House really puts people in positions to be successful and to feel like they're doing something worthwhile, and I started feeling good about the things I was doing. Yeah. My relationship with God is, He's been here the whole time. I know that God loved me enough to allow me to try things my own way, and I experienced a lot of pain as a result of that. But when I was willing to allow people in my life and start having faith into something other than my twisted thinking, God really revealed Himself, and Beacon House really was the perfect way for me to be introduced to God for the first time. The Beacon House discusses kind of the way to get sober through the literature that we read, but more importantly, it gives us like time and a forum to actually act those things out that we were taught. The Beacon House isn't scared to teach people about faith. The Beacon House requires such an extreme amount of energy from lots of dedicated people to do what it does, because this isn't just go to a class and go hang out. This is everybody on the same page, going the same direction, and it's way different than any other treatment center I've been to. It kind of changed the way I perceived life. I became less important in my own life, and they introduced me to a higher power, which is what I need to stay sober, which is God, ultimately.
Addiction and homelessness is on the rise countrywide. I don't know the exact reasons why but it's growing, and that's of concern. Something needs to be done. It's just a matter of how to find the proper way to do it. At the bistros, you get to listen to the guys talk about how many programs they've been in, and they average 3, 4, 5 different programs, and with no success whatsoever, they come to Beacon House and their lives are turned around. And as far as I'm concerned, Beacon House should be a model for the balance of the country. It's changed me as far as how I look at people on the street and what addiction can do to people. but I also found that there's a way out of it. And that is the most important thing.
I remember taking a walk around the block with our program director, Brent, at around 6-month time frame. I really wasn't investing into what was going on there, and I was trying to do things my way, which never work out well. And he just told me, you know, I thought I was gonna get scrutinized and get in trouble, but he just calmly said, he looked me in the eyes and he says, you need to start using what God gave you for its intended purposes, and that's to lead other men and be helpful. And I just remember like that having a lot of meaning and value to me at that time, and I was scared to take on that role, but the people at the house, the men and the staff members of the house really focus on what we do and what we do well so that we can use those tools to help other people. My relationships with friends and family are better than they've ever been. Most of my friends either live at the Beacon House or are graduates or staff members of the Beacon House. My friends today they tell me when I'm screwing up. They hold me accountable. They call me. They check in on me. My family loves me. My parents have a son that's not trying to take from them anymore. They trust me. It just feels good to have an adult relationship with my folks. My brother and myself are closer than we've been. My son, I speak to my son on a regular basis. His mom trusts me. It's just all relationships with everybody is 1000% better. Yeah, I love the house. You know, there's really nothing I could articulate that would do it justice. The people here are amazing. The support for the house is amazing, and you know, God's got his fingerprints all over this place, and it's pretty obvious. And the house restores families, not just alcoholics, but other people who are affected by that alcoholic are brought to faith as well, because they see the radical change in their child's life. So yeah, it's an amazing place. I love it, and I want to be part of it the rest of my life.